Hello and welcome to Euphoria. I'm creating a building for my Lego city. It's an old astronomical clock that sits in the centre of the town and is a historical landmark and tourist attraction. In this video, I'll build the ground floor of this modular building. I expect to do a couple more videos showing the rest of the build for this MOC. Look out for those coming up. Okay, so I'm going to build this model from the ground up, as it were, starting with a grey 32 by 32 base plate. I've found these to be best for buildings because they tend not to show through any wacky colours if you don't cover the whole base plate. So let me start with this corner. I'm going to lay some tiles down to start with. So this is the base for the fountain in this blue colour, and we'll build up the walls of the fountain, or the surround of the fountain around here. Now we move on to the second quarter of the base plate. Now the concept for this building called for it to have a passageway down the side of the building. So I've made it into a corner modular building with a pavement or sidewalk down the side of the building as well as at the front. So that means there's quite a lot of tiling to do at the front and side of the building. Also, because this is a T-shaped building, it means there's quite a lot of space inside, and I decided to fully tile the ground floor. So there's quite a lot of tiling to do inside the building as well. At the front, I've made sure there's the two drains that normally appear on a modular building, and also there's a space for the lamppost, which normally goes on the right side at the front of the building. Now we move on to the third quarter in this base plate layout. Now in this build I'm putting all the tiles and plates down on the base plate first, and that leaves gaps where the walls will be. You perhaps wouldn't do it that way if you were free building or if you were building the model for the first time in bricks. I've seen some people put down plates on the base plate and then build the walls on top of those plates. But I prefer to have the walls directly on the base plate so that the tiling for the pavement and the internal floors rises above the walls, and in that way it looks more like the walls are set into the ground, and so it kind of grounds the building rather than it just being placed on top of a set of plates and tiles. So now I can move on to the last quarter of the base plate and put the tiles down here in the same way. I did have a bit of fun designing these patterns in the pavement outside where the front door is going to be, and also inside in the interior space of the hallway, and this bit here is inside where the tower will be. Of course you can do lots of different designs, but I decided on these. The more detail you put in, of course, the more parts it uses. So we'll see how this builds up now into the next stage of the build. So that's the base plate with its tiles and plates completed as seen from the front. Now I can move on to putting bricks into these spaces, which will form the start of the walls and some of the interior decorations. You might notice there's quite a lot of dark stone grey and dark tan or sand yellow colours on this first level, and that's part of the concept or backstory of this building, where it's been built sort of into the rock and the spring area emerges from out of the rock, and also the dark tan gives you a kind of grounding of the building into the ground so that it feels like it's more kind of solidly established on the ground. Okay, so I've got my first problem here. I'm supposed to put that brick and that brick in there. Somehow the tiling has got underneath where this brick needs to go. I do remember I made a change in the design here quite late on. So what I'm going to do is lift these tiles to make room for that brick that needs to go there, and change it around slightly, and just hope I've got the tiles I need to finish off this area of the floor here. Okay, so I've modified that bit, got this 1x4 brick in there and just changed around these tiles slightly so that it still tiles in that area there. Fortunately I had one or two spares that allow me to do that. Okay, so that's all the tiling, both the pavement around the outside and the internal tiling completed, as well as all this kind of rock work that's around the outside and the foundations of the building in dark tan. And you can see where the external fountain is now and where the internal drinking fountain is going to go. And now we can start building up the walls on top of this rock work. I have actually made a couple of small improvements to the design because I didn't like the look of it when I'd put the original design down. The tiling round this internal fountain looked a bit untidy the way I'd originally got it, and just by moving a few of these tiles around I've managed to make that look much neater. And also just the bit around this external fountain was a bit untidy as well, so I've just improved slightly the way that that fits onto the tiling of the pavement. So now I'm able to start building up the walls that fit on top of the rocks and the foundation layer. These walls will slowly build up, as we'll see, and hopefully we'll start to see the outline of the building. That's the hinge for the door, which will come in a step or two. The back door goes in. There we get the internal drinking fountain, looking rather nice now. Then we get the first steps, which are stone steps on the ground floor, and eventually we get to the archway for the front door. Of course, every museum and tourist attraction has to have a shop associated with it, and this one is no exception. So on the left of the entrance, the ground floor area is a small museum shop, and in it you find all the usual things that you might see in a museum shop, such as gifts, drinks, small items to take away, and of course something to entice the children to insist that their parents spend loads of money in the shop. So here we have an array of jars, bottles, a few things on the shelf, some nice gifts, and an exciting rocket to attract the children. The museum is also happy to take your money if you want to sample the water from the spring, and there's an area where you can buy a cup of water or even bottle your water yourself. So eventually the two doors go on, one obviously for the back door, and that has a key hanging on a hook outside the door. So the back door can open into that space there and obviously closes again. There'll be an arch over here to strengthen this construct, and then the front door obviously goes on the front here. So the front door, when it's open, leaves space to get through into the hallway like this, and obviously when it closes it blocks off the front door like that. There'll be an archway over here which is built into this wall structure, so it'll be a lot more secure than it is at the moment, and we'll move on to that in the next stage of building the walls. Now I've used several panel pieces and arches in this design. The panel pieces allow me to get the angles of the corners for the tower and also the curves behind the fountain. The arches, of course, perform the same function as in a real building, which is that they support the upper floor of the building, particularly in the corner where the tower is going to be, because typically that will be very heavy, a masonry tower, and would need support all the way round. But also with Lego, they help to bind the walls together, tie things across openings, and that provides strength and rigidity to the building. And although the walls were a bit wobbly when I first put them in, as I now start to put the arches in and bind the walls together, it will become very strong and pretty firm now. So now I can finish off the surround for the fountain. I've left the fountain fairly plain. I didn't want it to be too ornate and decorated, given the kind of age of the building and the design. So it's a simple curved top without any ornamentation, that's attached to the side of the building. So now, having got all the windows, all the panels and all the arches in for the ground floor, I can start to finally bind it all together at the top with layers of bricks that will finish off the walls for the ground floor. So these 1x1 bricks with a clip on the side will support the drain pipes or down pipes that I'll add onto the outside of the building later. This corner construction for the tower was one of the most difficult things to design, because I wanted to maintain the octagonal shape of the tower and yet integrate it into the building, providing space for minifigs to get through the corner of the tower into the tower itself. And so I came up with this construct with two arches supported by a pillar, and that pillar is also more or less in the middle of the main area of the shop and continues up through the building, because it also further up supports the roof line right at the top of the building. And so this construct is supporting the weight of the tower and supporting the weight of the roof, while providing access into the tower from each floor of the building. Now the walls are all finished, so I can put a layer of tiles on the top. That gives it a smooth finish which separates the ground floor from the first floor and allows the first floor to be easily removed. It just connects using a couple of tiles with a couple of studs on to locate the next floor up. I was unfortunately limited by the colours available for the 4x4 curved tiles. They weren't available in tan, so I've had to use light bluish grey instead, and the same with one of the tiles with a cut corner, but most of the tiles that will be visible from the outside of the building will be tan to match the rest of the building. So now that I've finished building the walls, I can complete the external details for the building. I already did some of the details at the ground floor, like the plants and flowers around the base of the building, but now I can do the downpipes or drain pipes on each of the four corners of the building. There's a lamp goes by the back door, and also at the back of the building I've put a rubbish bin and an old barrel just to add a bit of character. And then on the back wall of the building there's this climber, or the ground floor part of it anyway, which actually will extend up to the next floor when I build that. There are also the decorative guardians above the front entrance to the building, and of course we mustn't forget the obligatory lamppost that sits on the pavement outside every modular building. So that's the ground floor of this model completed. It's gone together pretty much as I designed it, so I'm very pleased with that. I made one or two minor improvements along the way building this particular part of the MOC. I hope you enjoyed watching me build this part of the MOC, and look out for the next video where I'll be building the next level of the building. So please let me know what you think in the comments below. Like this video if you liked it, look out for the next one in the series, and subscribe to this channel if you want to see more videos about LEGO modular buildings.